It is a pleasure to be here again. I was Peter's MP. She came to see me after the death of her son. We got involved in pursuing the case, all out to my getting a meeting with the Attorney General, who was very sorry, very concerned, but broadly, it demonstrated to me that it was just an assumption that these things happen and there wouldn't be a vigorous pursuit of the driver of the lorry that had just driven over her son and killed him. And it seems to me, as we talked about this, the whole legal system was based on the presumption that a road death is primarily just bad luck. It could happen to anyone, and there's nothing much we can do about it. It's something we have to live with. And I really want to pay tribute to the work that she has done in driving RoadPeace forward, raising these issues, making certain laws are changed, lawmakers, administrators start to take this problem seriously. And it's certainly one that we've approached with a fresh eye in the last 8 years since the Greater London Authority was established. Over these 8 years, we've been able to achieve a 40% reduction in the number of people killed or seriously injured on London's roads. Now that actually means 2,000 people less a year killed or seriously injured on our roads, of whom 500 are children. And you would have thought such good news would have led to headlines. It would have been trumpeted. Cities up and down the country would say, well, what's going right there? How should we copy it? Others would have said, how can we drive it forward more rapidly? But I don't ever recall a single detailed story in any of the media about this. Perhaps the RoadPeace has collected something. You would have thought such good news and such a clear impact of policy changes would have been something that would have been debated in Parliament, in the media, and people would have seen what are the lessons we can draw from this, how can we take that forward? Because that reduction still means over 100 people will be killed in road deaths on the streets of London this year, and a further 2,500 will be seriously injured. So we've come a long way, but not quite halfway. But there's still clearly an immense amount more that we can achieve. Over this last 8 years, in the spending of Transport for London, we've prioritised measures such as more pedestrian crossings. And I've been denounced for this. The drivers' organisations depict me as some maniac that wants to turn all of our streets into just one last pedestrian crossing. But I do confess there are 20% more pedestrian crossings on the streets of London today when I was elected, and they have played a key part in leading to that reduction in the numbers of dead and seriously injured on our streets. I also confess, and Jeremy Clarkson has denounced me for it, and Boris Johnson and the Evening Standard directly, we have rephased traffic lights. We've done the outrageous of giving pedestrians another 2 or 3 seconds to cross the roads. And that has played its part in this reduction in the death toll. And those are things we're proud of. But we have had most probably more criticism than that over the last 8 years, and from the car lobby and the sort of the freedom to drive as you want, where you want, irrespective of casualties lobby, than almost anything else that we've done. And as Bob was saying, if these deaths all happened on one day, at one point, this would be international news. We are talking about twice the number of deaths of Londoners as we saw in the bombings on the Underground bus on July the 7th. Twice that death toll. And it would be news that would dominate and revelate around the world. Instead, what is happening around most of the world, the death toll on the streets is increasing year by year, and with horrendous levels of increase in the developing world. And what we've been doing here in London doesn't just need to be part of a policy place in the rest of Britain and in Europe, but actually something we now need to take globally. Because what we are seeing as many developing economies rush manically towards a car solution to their transport problems, rather than a public transport solution is horrifically escalating carnage on the streets of the world. We prioritise those measures because we believed it was right. We didn't anticipate just how dramatically the accident figures would come down. I remember when we started out 8 years ago, we set these targets. I thought, targets that we were due to reach by 2010. I thought, am I setting a target that I'm going to abysmally fail to meet? Instead, we met those targets years earlier, and we've now set new and stronger targets. Because every death on our streets is one death too many. And there are clear and obvious choices we need to make as citizens about the balance of rights and powers between the freedom to drive as people would wish, unhindered, and the need to manage the traffic on our streets so that people are not killed or incapacitated. And therefore, we've actually experimented with and now pushed forward very strongly with what we call 20-mile-per-hour zones. And these are based on one simple fact, which is demonstrated in accidents both here and around the rest of the world. If you are hit by a car travelling at 40 miles per hour, 9 times out of 10, you will die. If you are hit by a car travelling at 20 miles per hour, there is 1 chance in 20 that you will die. And I have to say to anyone who's in a rush to get across London, I think actually the balance here has to be that user tax take a little longer and more people should live and not be maimed. And that seems to me the whole basis on which the 20-mile-per-hour policy should have been rolled out, and we now have. And right the way across many of our boroughs, some cooperating more than others, we now have got whole areas where the residential streets are zoned for 20 miles per hour,